At approximately 9:25 a.m. on Monday, the 19th of September 1921, an explosion ripped through the underground workings of the Mount Mulligan coal mine in northern Queensland. All 75 men working underground at the time were tragically killed. A royal commission was undertaken to inquire into the disaster and to further make recommendations in order that it may help prevent such events from happening again in the future. There was no specific coal mining legislation in place in 1921, and some persons did not have the necessary competencies at the time of the disaster. The Commission recommended separate coal mining legislation, a research organisation, and controls for coal dust and explosives. The main form of transportation for people, goods and the shipping of coal was via the branch railway line to Dimbula, constructed in 1910. The line terminated at Mount Mulligan. The population of the township in 1921 was approximately 350. On the surface, 2 steam-powered generators provided electrical power to the mine and the town. 1 AC generator provided power for the mine machinery, and 1 DC generator provided power and lighting areas of the township and mine surface. A large-scale coking plant to the southern section of the mine surface had been in development at the time of the disaster. This was eventually completed by 1925. The Mount Mulligan coal measures are situated below a massive Triassic sandstone of up to 400 metres in thickness. The mine extracted coal from the number 1 and number 2 seams accessed by a main tunnel 10 feet wide by 7 feet 6 inches through the strata. The main workings were in the number 2 seam, which was 2 foot 3 inches in thickness. 4 main levels are driven to the left of the main tunnel and 3 to the right. The total length of all roadways in the mine was approximately 4 miles. Ventilation was provided by a 100 horsepower main fan on the surface with 3 ventilation districts in the mine, number 1 seam and 2 districts in the number 2 seam. The haulage tunnel was the main intake for the whole mine. The mine conditions underground were noted as being gas-free and very dry. Initial coal extraction method had been board and pillar, but this had been replaced in favour of longwall mining. Machine faces of approximately 100 yards are worked with a Sullivan coal cutter to undercut the coal seam. Explosives were then used to break the coal and allowed to be manually loaded into skips for haulage to the surface. Winches and horses were used in the number 1 seam to pull the coal to the main haulage. Coal from the number 2 seam was hand-wheeled from the face to the main haulage road. A main endless rope haulage system was employed in the main dips road with a speed of up to 2 miles per hour and a maximum haulage distance of 1 kilometre. Skips of coal weighing up to 1 tonne were spaced at intervals of approximately 60 metres along the ropeway. The average output prior to the explosion was approximately 180 tonnes per day. At 9:25 a.m, several loud explosions were reportedly heard as far as 30 kilometres away from the mine. A violent coal dust explosion had just occurred underground.
Well, the day was a beautiful sunny day, of course, and we were just about to fall into the lane to go into school. You know, we had to assemble, and the explosion went bang, to my recollection, bang, bang.
The explosive force of the blast was significant enough to propagate throughout the mine and eventually exhaust from both tunnels, causing catastrophic damage at each mouth. Clear evidence of flame had also been discovered during the inquiry. The main ropeway haulage drums, weighing close to 2 tonnes and securely fixed above the main entrance, had been torn from their foundation and hurled 20 metres down the ropeway. A blacksmith's cabin 60 metres down the ropeway was completely destroyed. At the mine entrance of the return roadway, the main ventilation fan had been smashed beyond repair. Initial witnesses who had been working at the coking plant arrived at the main entrance shortly after the explosion and had entered 80 yards into the tunnel to retrieve 2 of the miners who had been badly injured. Both men succumbed to their wounds and died shortly after the rescue. The whole area around the mine was blackened by coal dust. Grass fires burned 60 metres from the entrance. There was little chance for any survivors.
He come down, went out the gate and headed for the mine. See, anybody in that place would head for the mine.
Apart from a handful of ill or newly arrived miners, the men who survived in Mount Mulligan were surface workers, clerks and shopkeepers. They were ill-equipped even under the most benign circumstances and eventually forbidden from entering the mine for fear of possible additional explosion. Eventually, a small group of rescuers entered the mine. They were confronted with dislodged timber, falls of stone, thick air heavy with smoke polluted by toxic gas. Bodies of miners were found only a short distance inside the mine. Risking their own lives, the rescuers continued into the mine only a few hundred metres. An influenza pandemic affected rescuers as well as exhaustion and poisonous gases. Suffering from gas poisoning and worsening conditions, the rescue was suspended until ventilation was restored to the mine. In the following days, others arrived at Mount Mulligan to assist with the rescue. A search of the mine would take days. Many of the rescuers had never seen a mine as extensive as Mount Mulligan and were bewildered by their task and puzzled by their surroundings. Dr. Nye of Atherton expressed his view that Mount Mulligan required the work of clergymen, not doctors.
They probably had ambulance people and doctors. Well, actually, nobody come out alive. Now, that was one of the statements the manager I heard made. He warned the people at the pithead that he didn't expect anyone to come out alive.
By 5 a.m. on Tuesday, almost 24 hours after the explosion, a fan had been installed and ventilation restored to the mine. The mining warden joined the search on Wednesday. By Wednesday night, 56 miners had been recovered. As the air improved, the search continued to Fitzpatrick's Wall on Thursday, with all of the 74 bodies recovered from the mine on Friday morning. It is miraculous that no rescuers were lost or seriously injured during the recovery. The first funeral in Mount Mulligan occurred at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, the 20th of September, when 6 of the dead were buried. More men were employed as grave diggers than involved in the recovery at the mine. Eventually, explosives were used to dig the graves, which only made it more traumatic for the grieving families of Mount Mulligan. The only survivor of the explosion, Tom Evans, died in the Mareeba Hospital on Monday, the 26th of September, bringing the total deaths to 75. Only 4 days after the disaster, a royal commission was appointed to inquire into the explosion by the Queensland Premier, Edward Theodore. Investigation by the Royal Commission concluded that a coal dust explosion had most likely been initially triggered near the face of number 11 gateway on Fitzpatrick's machine wall, located in the southern district of the number 2 coal seam. Knowledge of coal dust explosions had grown in other countries such as the UK, France and the USA, resulting from disasters in those countries, but not so in Queensland. The UK completed a Royal Commission on coal dust explosions in 1893. The recommendations from the Torban-Lee Royal Commission in Queensland from 1900 had not been fully implemented. There is no doubt that a coal dust explosion occurred at Mount Mulligan. It is believed that it originated at the face in the number 11 gateway, Fitzpatrick's machine wall section in the number 2 seam, and it was propagated throughout the workings of both seams. The cause remains subject of debate, despite the unanimous conclusion of the Royal Commission that found the firing of an explosive, either accidentally or otherwise, on top of a large block of fallen machine-cut coal, such explosive not having been placed in a shot hole. It is difficult to understand how explosives, being used in the ordinary way, could be fired in this spot. Alternatively, the conclusion that obtrudes itself is that a plaster shot was placed on this block of coal to break it, so as to facilitate handling, and it exploded prematurely, either because of defect in the fuse or from some other cause such as a fall of roof stone. The Mount Mulligan mine was eventually recovered and continued working for approximately another 30 years. Specific coal mining legislation was established in Queensland in 1925. The next coal dust explosion didn't occur in Queensland for another 50 years. The inquiry into the Box Flat and Kayanga disasters found that stone dusting requirements had not been complied with. Queensland did not establish a mine safety and explosion research station until 1986, only 65 years after it was recommended at Mount Mulligan. The Mount Mulligan coal mine disaster killed more miners than all of the other Queensland coal mine disasters combined, lest we forget.